Good morning, club members. We digest world-class journalism and talk it through in plain English. Here are 5 stories worth your time. Nvidia is helping its customers borrow hundreds of billions of dollars to buy its own chips. On paper, the chip maker looks like a business with endless rivers of incoming cash. Yet behind the scenes, the company has quietly stepped in as a massive financial backer. Industry analysts call this new approach balance sheet as a service. Big investment firms are raising more than $500 billion to build artificial intelligence infrastructure. Nvidia has agreed to guarantee up to 25% of that value. That single pledge creates tens of billions of dollars in potential financial risk. The company is also striking private deals with smaller cloud computing providers. These smaller firms want to rent out expensive processors to software builders. To help them borrow money, Nvidia guarantees a minimum price floor for their chip rentals. In these deals, private funds buy the chips and lease them to young technology firms. Nvidia provides the backstop, which allows those young firms to borrow at much cheaper rates. If market rental prices collapse, Nvidia must step in and pay the difference. Why would a chip maker take on such heavy financial burdens for its customers? The largest technology companies may be slowing down their spending on computer hardware. They are also running out of land and electricity for new computing centers. Nvidia wants to keep sales moving fast by creating brand new buyers. The company believes this structure will generate tens of billions of dollars in steady earnings. By protecting these smaller firms, Nvidia keeps huge chip orders flowing into its factories. But critics worry about what happens when a seller finances its own buyers. It starts to look like circular financing, where sales depend on Nvidia taking the risk. These guarantees do not appear on the regular balance sheet as ordinary company debt. They hide inside complex contracts and private lending vehicles away from public view. Analysts warn that Nvidia could face $200 billion in credit risk by 2028. Rating agencies already want to count these support packages as debt-like obligations. As long as the artificial intelligence boom continues, the whole machine runs smoothly. Nvidia books immediate revenue while outside lenders carry the loans. But if demand for computing power drops, those customer debts will fall straight back on Nvidia. For our second story, we move from silicon debt to a sudden freeze on American immigration. The Trump administration has halted immigrant visa interviews across the entire world. Officials say consular staff need intensive training before they can issue any more visas. The training focuses on screening out applicants who might rely on American public assistance. Under United States law, officials must ensure newcomers will not become a financial burden. A State Department spokesperson stated that public benefits belong only to qualified citizens in need. Therefore, officers are learning how to evaluate the finances of every applicant much more strictly. However, the sudden timing of this training has raised eyebrows across the legal community. Just last week, a federal judge struck down an earlier immigration ban from January. That previous order had blocked visa applications from 75 mostly poorer countries. The judge ruled that the White House had overstepped powers assigned to consular staff by Congress. Instead of abandoning the idea, the administration simply expanded the pause to every country on Earth. That sweeping decision has caused instant chaos for thousands of families around the world. People with scheduled embassy appointments suddenly received brief emails saying their interviews were cancelled. Meanwhile, the government gave no timeline for when regular visa processing will start again. The disruption hits applicants especially hard because of another recent policy change. Since last year, applicants must process their green cards in their country of birth. Many of these people already lived and worked legally inside the United States for years. Some are married to American citizens or raising young children in American neighborhoods. They booked expensive flights to cities like Mumbai and Naples just to attend their interviews. Now they find themselves stranded abroad without valid travel papers to return home. Immigration lawyers point out that applicants have spent thousands of dollars on this process. If the delay drags on for months, many workers could easily lose their American jobs. This policy reflects a much broader push by Donald Trump to reduce legal entry into America. His team has steadily limited work visas, restricted green cards, and cut refugee resettlement. Yet this new worldwide pause faces immediate pressure from the federal court in Washington. The judge has ordered both legal teams to suggest a compromise by mid-September. Until the courts settle this dispute, thousands of families remain trapped in frustrating uncertainty. For our third story, we stay in Washington, where corporate hiring rules are shifting very fast. The consulting giant Deloitte has agreed to pay the American government over $21 million. Federal officials accused the company of running discriminatory diversity programs across its business. According to investigators, Deloitte set strict demographic goals for its workforce over several years. The firm wanted to increase the proportion of Black, Hispanic, and female employees at every level. To make sure managers complied, business units received monthly summaries tracking their hiring progress. Around 150 senior partners even had their annual pay tied to these numbers. That became a major legal issue because Deloitte earns billions from federal government contracts. Under American law, any company working for the state must promise not to discriminate. The Department of Justice argued that rewarding managers for demographic targets violated that basic rule. Officials also claimed these programs created extra business costs that were passed on to taxpayers. Deloitte denies doing anything illegal and denies that its diversity efforts were discriminatory. The company agreed to pay the settlement simply to avoid long and expensive court battles. It will pay $10 million in restitution, alongside $11.5 million in civil penalties. This settlement reflects a much wider campaign against corporate diversity policies under Donald Trump. Just 3 months ago, the technology company IBM paid $17 million over similar accusations. Both cases were pushed forward by a conservative legal group called the American Alliance for Equal Rights. That group sued Deloitte on behalf of the government using federal contracting laws. For its role in the case, the activist group will receive over $4 million. The message to major employers doing business with Washington could not be much clearer. What was standard corporate practice just a few years ago is now treated as illegal discrimination. In response, many large firms have quietly stopped publishing their annual diversity reports. Deloitte has also dropped those reports and shifted its focus purely to individual skills. Corporate boards now face an uncomfortable choice about how they recruit and reward talent. They still want diverse workplaces, but setting numerical targets now invites aggressive federal investigations. For big contractors, protecting internal workplace culture while keeping state contracts has become genuinely difficult. Moving to our fourth story after workplace fines, let us look at global shipping. A South Korean container ship recently left the port of Busan for Europe. It set off on an ambitious 45-day round-trip voyage across the globe. Instead of heading south toward the Suez Canal, the ship sailed north. It is traveling along the Arctic coast of Russia toward European ports. This is South Korea's first commercial trial of the Northern Sea route. As polar ice melts, governments and exporters hope this path reshapes global trade. On paper, sailing through the Arctic saves roughly 10 days at sea. In an industry where every single day counts, that cuts huge fuel costs. It also offers a way around troubled choke points in the Middle East. Conflict in the region has made traditional shipping corridors feel far more vulnerable. So, looking at a globe, the Arctic route makes clear economic sense. South Korea also feels intense pressure to keep up with its neighbours. China has been running seasonal container trips through the Arctic since 2023. Just this month, China launched the first regular freight service to Europe. Busan is currently the second largest transshipment port in the entire world. Cargo from neighbouring countries usually stops in Busan before travelling further west. Korean officials worry that Chinese ports could steal that valuable transit business. The Korean shipping line already took bookings for Japanese and Chinese cargo. However, this northern shortcut comes with very complicated political problems. The Arctic route is administered by a Russian state company called Rosatom. Every passing vessel needs official permission from Moscow before it can enter. The Korean ship will not visit Russian ports or use Russian icebreakers. Even so, dealing with Russia creates major friction with Western allies. Western countries have placed strict sanctions on Moscow over the war in Ukraine. Several foreign diplomats in Seoul expressed disappointment about South Korea's trial. One diplomat even claimed that South Korea paid transit fees to Russia. The Korean government firmly denied paying any money to Russian state agencies. Officials insisted that they consulted partners to follow international rules carefully. Beyond diplomacy, private companies face a huge financial wall. A ship can easily make the physical voyage through the cold water. Yet, if international insurers refuse to cover the risk, voyages must stop. Western banks might also refuse to process payments connected to Russian waters. Chinese firms ignore those risks, but Korean businesses cannot afford to. Climate change may be opening the Arctic Ocean for faster trade, but whether ships can actually use it depends on politics, banks, and sanctions. For our final story today, we are heading inside a car design studio. Honda is trying to build new cars much faster using artificial intelligence. Under normal conditions, creating a whole new vehicle body takes 5 years. The Japanese car maker wants to shrink that schedule down to 3 years. To speed up development, company engineers tried a very unusual approach. They built several distinct software agents and asked them to work as a team. Honda has long relied on a famous workplace tradition called Waigaya. That tradition encourages free debate, where job rank does not matter at all. Senior managers hoped their digital agents would argue just like human staff. Yet when the experiment started in the design room, it quickly stalled. One agent was trained to protect passengers and pedestrians during collisions. Another agent specialized in cutting down cabin noise and road vibration. These two engineering goals fight each other all the time. Extra safety frames can make a car heavier and create irritating vibrations. Stripping away heavy brackets makes the ride smoother, but it reduces crash protection. When the two models argued from scratch, they froze after just a few lines. They listened to each other so closely that both forgot their original missions. Researchers reset the test 20 times, but the computers could never agree. The team leader eventually looked back at how real engineers solve disputes. Human experts never begin a project by making compromises right away. A safety engineer first drafts the best possible safety plan in isolation. A comfort specialist creates an ideal quiet cabin on their own desk. Only after finishing those solo designs do the two engineers meet to negotiate. Honda told the software to follow the exact same working steps. Each agent now refines its own proposal before sharing any ideas. Once the models met with finished plans, they found a practical middle ground. Now Honda is putting this hybrid system into real vehicle projects. Human designers draw initial body panels and show sketches to 3 agents. One checks collision safety, Another tests cabin noise, and a third watches airflow. The software returns revised body options almost instantly for the designers to review. Human engineers can now test far more design variations than ever before. It turns out machines work best when they mirror our own messy compromises. That brings us to the end of today's stories. Thank you for sharing your breakfast with me, and I will see you tomorrow morning.